Well, folks, welcome to one more edition of Politics and Right. I'm Egberto Willis, your host. Thank you so kindly for being a part of the show. We are going to have a great show for you today. We have a whole lot to cover, folks, but most importantly, there was an article today that came out about rural hospitals. Those of you all listening from all over the country know one thing. We have a whole lot of very populated centers around here, but then the rest of the country, that big red area that you always see, that they give you the impression that most of the country is covered in red. What we're really looking at is empty land that you're seeing there, but importantly, these are our brothers and sisters, many of them now going through dire straits. These are strong Trump supporters that are going through hell. Hello, Jane Smith. Welcome aboard. Welcome aboard. Hey, Jane Smith, the statement that you have there on YouTube says, "My President Trump is working hard for legal citizens of America, MAGA, COG," whatever that means. Let me tell you though, however, please stay with the program. I want you to listen to the program, and I also want you to be a part of the program, whether you call into our telephone number at 646-716-5812. Again, that number is 646-716-5812. Or if you want to leave more messages on our path here, our message board that you're on right now. So I want to engage with you. I want you to feel comfortable being a part of this program, because what we want to do here is not necessarily just sit down and first of all, I do not spend time dogging Trump supporters. I spend time trying to talk to all American citizens so that we can all come up with solutions that serve us whom all. So please stick with the program. The telephone number is 646-716-5812. Again, that number is 646-716-5812. Well, before we get into the program, well, first I'll tell you what, let's just go ahead and get into the program. Program title today is Trump Screwing Rural America. Only Medicare for All can save their health. Again, title of the program, Trump Screwing Rural America. Only Medicare for All can save their health. Trump has supporters, a very rural base, believing he is in it for them. These are good people thinking, this guy, they are fearful people, but they're good people. But many times, the plutocracy has put fear. The plutocracy has put fear in the eyes of these people. They're put in the eyes of the people like those people are coming to get you. That's what they're saying. Those people are coming to get you. And that's what they want you to believe. They want you to believe that those people are coming to get you. I'm here to tell you, nobody is coming to get you. In fact, if you want to be honest about it, we all want the same things. Trump has supporters, a very rural base, believing he is in it for them. In reality, he is killing them. He is bankrupting them, or both. Medicare for All is a partial answer for them. As an independent blogger, journalist, it is my job to be truthful. It is my job to be truthful. There is absolutely no one paying me. There's absolutely no one supporting me but people that listen to the program like you. So therefore, I am owned by no software company. I am owned by no medical company. I am owned by no company that prevents me from telling you the truth. You don't see drug advertisement after the show, within the show, that are preventing me from telling you the truth. You don't see all those things out there. So if you want the unadulterated truth, you can come to an independent media source like we are, but more importantly, you can get a dialogue. You can get to speak. You can get to have other people hear your voice as well. So, as an independent blogger, journalist, it is my job to be truthful. Medicare for All is an obvious first step to rebuild their slide, the slide of Trump's rural voter who he has summarily screwed over time. The people that have benefited the most from Trump don't live in rural areas. They live in the big cities. That's where they live, in the big cities. Those are the folks. Mike Cisak says, we farmers are constantly outvoted by city folks who vote in politicians and laws that are very detrimental to us. Let me tell you something, Mr. Cisak. In a democracy, you vote for the person that's going to support your interests. And you also have to make your interest the interest of quite a few. And your interest is my interest, Mr. Cisak. Your interest is my interest. That you are dedicated to the grounds, to farming. It is my interest. And I would tell you that it is also the interest of most progressives. And I would further tell you that most progressives want what's good for you. And this program today, where it comes to medicine, I know you've come on before and talked about pay-as-you-go kind of medicine that works for works for a cold. It works for minor procedures. It works for minor things. But real insurance, real Medicare, medical care requires Medicare for all. And the story that I'm going to talk about today, it's about rural areas. It's about you, Mike Cisak. It's about wanting you to have what you deserve. You see, you as a farmer, you don't get the benefits of us city folks. You as a farmer, people come through, the Republicans come through farmland, and the progressives in general neglect farmland. They neglect, some come to get your vote. The farmers are to Republicans as minorities are to Democrats. The farmers are to Republicans as minorities are to Democrats. We come for your vote, and when we get your vote, we continue the interest of those who fund us. And those who fund us are one and in the same. So therefore, brother, guess what? The Democrats are funded by the same drug companies, the same insurance company, the same hospital companies, the same petrochemical companies that fund whom? The Republicans. They are both funded by the same. So therefore, if you stick with independent media, if you understand what I'm going to tell you today, we can all be on the same path so that the policies we get, whether you're a Republican or Democrat, are policies that really make sense for us all. Progressives, and let me tell you, it is in my interest to keep my land in the best shape it can be. I agree with you, sir. Progressives are completely ignorant in what it takes to farm the land. And as well, I'm in agreement with that, sir. So what do you do about that? You teach everybody, not progressives. I'm going to say progressives and Republicans and Democrats are all ignorant to what it takes to keep your land in shape. I will cop to that statement that you made, sir. But you ought to tell us what it takes. You ought to teach us what it takes. You ought to show us what it takes. But you know who don't want you to do that so that you will create a new coalition? The parties don't want that. The parties want this division so that that small sect continue to maintain the funding that they both get from the same people, Mike Cisak. So please understand that we are on the same side, sir. Please do understand that. And please understand that the reason we differ in things like Medicare for all, before I get into let me finish bringing the program on board. As an independent blogger, journalist, it is my job to be truthful. Medicare for all is an obvious first step to rebuild their health slide. More importantly, they will stop losing hospitals and in fact gain some. Sadly, because the current state of healthcare is largely profit-based and as such, anathema to providing service in rural areas, the people that currently worship Trump based on his false promises lives are in dire straits. Medicare for all will rebuild. Medicare for all will rebuild them health-wise and financially. And it goes without question. Math is absolute. Math is absolute. But before I get into the program, I want to bring some preambles here, some videos for some preamble, and I'm going to tell you why I want to do this. Because all of these, and even though we're going to be mostly talking again about Medicare for all and the rural hospitals closing, what I want to show you is the deconstruction that Trump is effecting mostly affects the people that voted for Donald J. Trump. And while for me, like if I were to sit down and see what is in my best interest, what is in my best interest, I would say, wow, go ahead and let Donald Trump continue to do what he's doing. But anyhow, let's go ahead. I want to show you the first video. First of all, the good news today was that Bernie Sanders has taken the lead as far as who is the person most likely to beat Donald Trump. And you know what? The corporate media is starting to take hold and notice what's going on. But here we go.
Politico is reporting that after months of being written off by Democratic Party insiders, in the past few weeks, something has changed in private conversations and on social media. Democratic officials, political operatives, and pundits are now reconsidering Bernie Sanders' chances. NBC's Shaquille Brewster has been on the campaign trail covering the Sanders campaign. Shaq, good to talk to you again. Welcome here into the studio. A little respite for you from the campaign trail. Let's talk about what is changing here. Why are, as we just said, Politico, they're kind of saying that there's been some discussion that Bernie Sanders' campaign has been given a second consideration, so to speak. You're on that campaign every day. What are you seeing?
Right, and when you go to Sanders events, you always have the mix of people. The people who are diehard Sanders supporters were with him in 2016 and now want him to close the deal. And then you have those who are fishing around for a candidate and still open to other candidates. And I think what you're seeing with Senator Sanders is a quiet momentum that he's riding. Just a couple of months ago, it was in October when he had that heart attack. He was sidelined from the campaign trail for about 2.5 weeks. Came back on the debate stage, but many people completely dismissed his campaign after that. They said he's a 78-year-old man and people aren't going to consider this candidate. You saw then Elizabeth Warren rise. You saw Mayor Pete rise. What's happened since those two candidates have fallen and Senator Sanders, he never lost that bottom didn't fall from under him. So he now got his support back and he feels good. His campaign sees the numbers going up in the average of polling. They feel like they have a lot of volunteers. They feel good about where they are right now.
Of course they feel good about where they are right now. That is because, you know what? Bernie Sanders actually has a cross-section, believe it or not, of Trump voters who only voted for Trump, not because they are Republicans, but because as they saw it, it is, we need to do something transformational in this country. Right now what is occurring is all the spoils are going to a few. Why not get the spoils? Bernie Sanders is one of the only ones standing up that says, look, forget it. We need transformational change. And as Elizabeth Warren, to a certain degree, is doing the same thing. She's just doing it in a milder fashion. But what I want to do is I want to present to you a piece that Ali Velshi did. Ali Velshi did a piece recently on regulations because this affects most of the Trump people than anyone else. Here we go. Let's go ahead and cue that.
The Trump administration has targeted a number of environmental regulations that protect the nation from climate crisis. Harvard's law school rollback tracker has counted about 85 of them. Now, existing environmental regulations are meant to ensure protections like preventing fossil fuel pollution from harming the air, protecting land and animals from oil and gas drilling, and limiting toxic waste runoff into our water. But let me break down the Trump administration's 5 environmental rollbacks, at least the 5 biggest ones in 2019. Let's start here. The administration announced announced plans to significantly weaken regulations on methane emissions. Keep in mind, methane is dangerous and accelerates global warming. The EPA also repealed a major Obama-era clean water regulation, which curbed the amount of pollution and chemicals in the country's rivers and lakes, which basically means more dirty water. The administration also made changes to how the Endangered Species Act is enforced. It's a move that would make it harder to protect wildlife from the threats of global warming, and it also replaced an Obama-era regulation to reduce carbon dioxide emissions by implementing a rule that would keep coal power plants open longer. And last but not least, the White House also prepared to eliminate an Obama-era rule restricting automobile pollution, arguing that the move would boost the economy. Automobiles account for nearly 1/5 of all U.S. global warming gas emissions. So why is President Trump trying to block so many environmental regulations? For one, the administration, which once branded fossil fuels as, quote, molecules of U.S. freedom, views many of these protections as a financial burden for fossil fuel companies. Plus, the president himself has declared human-made climate change to be a hoax. And what's more, this year, President Trump officially withdrew the United States from the Paris Climate Accord, the only country in the world to withdraw. He also mocked 16-year-old climate activist Greta Thunberg a day after she was named Time Person of the Year.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. So anyhow, so let's go ahead and start talking about exactly what's going on now. The other piece, I think there was another one that I wanted to show you, but after the crash that we had, here it is. It seems like it is here. Here it is. Journalists. No, that's not the one. Why? Okay, great. That is the one. Okay, one more video to show you, and then we'll get into the program proper. This one is rather important as well.
We have our first report card on the Trump tax cuts for corporations. It has been 2 years since Donald Trump signed the tax cuts passed by the Republican-controlled Congress into law, which cut the U.S. corporate tax rate from 35% to 21%. But according to a new report, 379 of America's Fortune 500 companies actually paid only a federal corporate income tax rate of 11.3%. And 91 of America's largest corporations, like Amazon and Chevron, paid no federal income taxes at all. This is all according to a new report from the Institute of Taxation and Economic Policy entitled Corporate Tax Avoidance in the First Year of the Trump Tax Law. Joining us on the phone, David K. Johnston. David, the argument that Republicans, and in particular Trump, made was that if we reduce the tax burden on some of these companies are going to come back and invest in America, they're going to hire more workers, they're going to manufacture more. That in turn produces more results for the economy. Have you seen anything to support that or substantiate that?
No, it's not in the data either. A lot of the money companies saved was used to buy back stock, which increases the value of the remaining shares and increases the value of stock options for executives. And Eamon, I don't think we should talk about this as a tax cut because we're borrowing the money to pay for the shortfall. This is simply a future tax increase with interest in the meantime. It's not a tax cut. It's a tax increase that's been disguised to make you think it's a tax cut.
It's a tax increase to make it look like a tax cut. Why did I bring all of these pieces in? Let me tell you in tow what I was trying to do here. The first piece I did to show that Mr. Sanders, Bernie Sanders, has finally taken the lead. Sort of, he is the person that most Americans think can best beat Donald Trump. And there's a reason for that. The reason for that is that Americans are looking for transformational change. They understand that the stock market is moving up higher. They understand that we're at almost full employment, but still yet people are having to work 1, 2, 3 jobs to keep pedaling and going into the same place. That is where they are today. They are constantly working harder. The stock market is going through the roof, but most people don't own stocks. Most people are not in the markets. So what that is telling you is this appreciation in value and the processes that create the appreciation in value are going to a select few. And that you're having to work harder to make the same amount of money is what means your excess labor, that extra work that you are doing, is actually being used to enrich a few. And how is it enriching the few? Because of that inflated stock price. There are a lot of reasons. There's things with the secondary, the repo market, that's also keeping the stock markets flying. I covered that in a former show, and I will be covering it again because my good friend Tim Donahue sent me some more information that needs to be looked at. But we have to understand what is occurring here, my friends. And the reason why we must understand this stuff is that it is hurting us materially. Now, the subject at hand today, and let me go ahead and pull up the piece here, because what's happening is simple, right? What is happening is a lot of oh, I love that new map that shows what it really looks like based on population, where is blue and where is red. That is really funny. But anyhow, somebody just posted that. Kathleen Maureen Morgan, thank you for posting that. And by the way, welcome aboard Masticator. Welcome aboard Get the Pitchforks. Welcome aboard Lee Grant. Welcome aboard Mike Cisak and everybody else that has given us the honor to be listening to Politics Done Right at this time. What I want to do is go directly to talk about hospitals. I want to go to the particular article that I said came over from NBC today, because it is heart-wrenching for anybody who wants to know the reality of how things were. This one was heart-wrenching to me. The title of this particular article from NBC was "Coping with Loss of Hospital. Rural Town Realizes." What does rural town realize? We don't need one. Rural town realizes we don't need one. It's been about a year since the hospital closed, and they're still surviving. And when I saw that article, the truth is, I kind of wanted to cry, because when you read the article, you actually see that the title of the article is, we found after the hospital closed, yeah, maybe we can do without it. Maybe so, because, you have all these transient doctors that come in and so forth. So anyhow, we can't live like that. We can't buy that. So the article starts innocent enough, right? It starts innocent enough. It says, Dr. Max Self grabbed a sanitary wipe and cleaned off the small flashlight in his hands. More than 20 years as a family doctor in rural Fort Scott, Kansas, has taught him a few tricks. I've got my flashlight. See, look, you can hold it. 2-year-old Talene Brown's eyes grow round and her tiny hand reaches out. But first, Self makes sure she opens her mouth wide and he peers down. Behind him sits another staff member, a medical scribe. You know those scribes? My daughter was a scribe for a while before she went to med school to learn how to write down exactly what the doctors are doing. That beloved hospital closed 1 year ago. And in the passing months, the small town's anger and fear evolved into grief, nervousness, and lately, pragmatic hope. So they were in despair, complete despair. But soon thereafter, maybe hope. And that hope simply entailed that we had transient doctors coming in to give you aid here and there. But the closest hospital was 30 miles away. Folks, what is occurring throughout rural America is because rural America does not have the density that you have in cities. Hospitals, without good support from the government, private hospitals that is, cannot exist profitably to warrant their existence. Think about it. You are in a little town of 10,000 people, one hospital that has 200 beds. There rarely, with 10,000 people, you rarely will ever have 200 sick people or whatever it is. But if you don't have the right amount of rooms in that hospital, it's not viable. So you try to keep it filled up by using people. There are a whole lot of reasons, my brothers and my sisters, why hospitals in rural areas, without strong government support, doesn't work. It makes no financial sense. And when many of these states, red states, decided not to take the Medicaid expansion to the Affordable Care Act, they slit the wrist of their constituents. They slit the wrist of their people. They caused the deaths of many of their people in those rural areas. And who is mostly responsible? Who is mostly responsible for not allowing those hospitals to be funded through the Medicaid expansion to the Affordable Care Act? Republican politicians. And Republican politicians who are supported mostly by people in rural areas. So therefore, the people that vote for them, they take away resources from that they would otherwise have, which implicitly causes many of them to die. They lose their hospitals. Somebody in that area gets into an accident. They get into an accident. The closest hospital is 30 miles away. Tell me, please tell me, if that hospital was 5 miles away, if that hospital was 8 miles away, think about it. They would have lived. They would have lived. Lee Grant, I'm going to go through the mail, these things in a little bit, Mr. Grant. But the issue here is this, people. We should all be sitting down trying to come up with these solutions together. Many of us have, with policies like Medicare for All, the Green New Deal, college that's paid for, all these things. They don't only give a hand up to many of the poor indigent in the big cities. They are more existential for people in rural areas. But somehow we don't get the support from the people in the rural areas because they are tied ideologically to Republican politicians that care nothing about them and Democratic politicians that doesn't give a rat's butt for them because they generally don't give the Democratic politicians any even consideration many times. But you know what we showed here in Texas with Beto O'Rourke is all you have to show people. Lo único que tienes que mostrar, all you need to show people is you truly, really, really care. Right? You really care. And I'm going to tell you a lot about progressives. I'm talking about progressive activists. I'm not just calling you about white tower, high tower progressives here that do everything on pen and paper. I'm talking about people who want to hug folk and talk to folk. I get into trouble because Me Too has changed the world. I'm a Latin American, Caribbean guy. We like to hug folk. It's a friendly thing. That's all it is. But in the Me Too time, it's kind of difficult. Sometimes I have to pace my head down not to say, hey, how you doing, and hugging, Unless I know that you're Panamanian or something, I know it's okay. But, the thing about it, brothers and my sisters, is that we have to understand this and we have to get serious about it. And the rural folk have to get engaged. And one of the reasons that I think I see a Bernie Sanders pulling out in the lead when it comes to who can best beat Trump is that he doesn't come across like many other politicians who are splitting the people up into their factions and only electing to give a message more in line with them. The one good thing about the true progressive activist now, Cortez, who wanted to go to West Virginia, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez she took up the offer. I want to talk to the people in West Virginia. Not only that, Bernie Sanders goes in. Elizabeth Warren went into West Virginia. They loved what they heard. they didn't commit to voting for her because that's going to be a transition in the way they think. Because you've been so long being told that those progressives, those liberals have horns. For those who haven't heard, I'm going to tell this story again, but if you've heard it, please forgive me. But I sat in a Starbucks and I was speaking to this woman, this white Republican woman who I think thought because of where I was and where I lived that I was likely a Republican guy. And I sat down and I spoke to her. And, we started talking about healthcare and so forth. And the kind of healthcare that I said would be great if we all could have was a perfect description of Medicare for all. But I never used the word Medicare for all. I never used the word I never used any of those words. I just explained to her what I would like to see, how I would like to see a medical system work. And I'll explain to you after I go into this story. And we went over and over, and she is enthralled, and she's even given ideas and talking about, yes, and if we go ahead and we added, in these areas and so forth, everybody would be taken care of, and everybody would have a stake in the game. And I'm like, yeah, and I don't understand why people don't see that. But then I started to feel a little guilty because she was deep into it, and she was into me, and she was into what's going on. I kind of stopped her there and I said, look, ma'am, I just want to tell you one thing, right? I am a left-wing, progressive, liberal Democrat. And she looked at me straight in the eye. Her face turned flushed red. And looking straight in my eye, she said, but you're so nice. And that is the problem. That, in effect, is the problem on all our parts. Too many think that those right-wing folks like my brother Mike Cisak and our Masticator or all these other folks are a whole bunch of crazy people that how can they be so stupid to vote for Trump? I never called you stupid for voting for Trump. Hell, I have relatives that, I'll be honest, I have a sister, one of my sisters, who voted for Trump. So, my thing isn't about trying to talk down to my brothers and sisters in these areas, to the folks who vote. No. Because we're all getting different information from different sources. Some sources are more honest than others. Some sources are more co-opted than others. But here you got Egberto Willis, independent media, politics done right. I'm only here to tell you the truth. I ain't kidding about that. I'm just here to tell you the truth. And by the way, I'm going to just use a 5 second to say, and please take this time to support Politics Done Right, because that is how we are going to get this message across to people all over. Because if we don't get support for these types of programming, you know what happens? We don't survive. So while I'm in the middle of the program here, it's 3:38. What I'm going to do right now real quickly is tell you, if you want to support Politics Done Right, look in your stream. Look, if you're looking at us live, go ahead and look in your stream for some different links. And by the way, if you're listening to us on YouTube, you can give us what's called a super chat and provide support in many different ways. I think there's a $ somewhere if you want to support this type of programming. But also you can go to patreon.com/politicsdoneright.com, or rather, patreon.com/politicsdoneright, or you can go to just politicsdoneright.com and you can pick one of the options there, or you can support our equipment fund, which is a GoFundMe that I've just placed the link in there as well. And you can support us through PayPal, and I'm putting the link in there as well. And our store. Later on, I'm going to show you all those nice T-shirts we have at the store. But anyway, getting back into the program. So, folks, after that woman tells me, but you're so nice. First of all, I took that as a compliment. True. Because I believe in talking to people. And anybody who listens to Politics Done Right on a regular basis, and by the way, folks, this is also a call-in show. You can give us a call at 646-716-5812. Again, that number is 646-716-5812. All right. So, but what hurt to the core was that not knowing me, She liked me. And not knowing people, people like you. Okay? And as soon as it's like I'm a Democrat, I'm a Republican, I'm a liberal, then that's where issues come through. Which is why I'm starting to say, yeah, I'm progressive. I'm proud to be progressive. I'm proud to be liberal. I'm proud to be Democrat. But that doesn't define my humanity. That doesn't define your conservatism, for whatever reason, does not define your humanity. Because there's so much that we all have to have the same, right? Healthcare as a right. Healthcare. That's what we want. Good healthcare. I don't want Lee Grant, Mike Cisak, Kathy, Pitchfork, or Masticator. I want absolutely nothing negative to happen to those folk. Whether you're a Republican, Democrat, conservative, liberal, I don't care who you are. So therefore, we should be able to come and forget about, I want to read a piece that I put on, a little comment that I put on a friend's Facebook page. I think I can get to it rather quickly. Cody Polk. Because what happened is this, people. I think I can find it here. And because this is rather important. Here's what it said. He wrote a note that says, most societal problems can be solved by the free market. And then he says, those problems that the free market won't solve is in an equitable, ethical, and affordable way should be solved by government. And for the most part, I don't completely disagree with what my good friend, who's a good progressive, said, right? But I want you to hear how I responded to him, because the response is rather important. It goes as follows. I said, labeling is dangerous. I believe in every policy that makes lives better for our fellow person. The masters that we have allowed to govern us are experts in using labels to put us in specific camps. By creating good camps and bad camps, they can isolate policies that are good for the masses but less optimal for their extractive pilfering into bad camps. In other words, a good idea, they can throw good ideas into bad camps, right? Into a bad camp. In other words, Medicare, by creating good camps and bad camps, they can isolate policies. That way, they can get good people to oppose policies that are otherwise perfect mathematically and logically for their well-being. As an example, Medicare for all is socialism, and as such, Venezuela. So once you do that, you've closed the argument. You prevent those from seeing the goodness of Medicare for all, and I'm going to use it in the essence, in as I explained, hospital closures right after this. In the process, they have so degraded our educational system and created a mental dependency that it is difficult for people to think for themselves in a logical fashion. By the way, I do not believe in free markets because I don't know what the hell it is. I believe in free enterprise, the ability for the individual or group of individuals to create businesses, enterprises they control to provide a product and service they can profit from and live from and pay taxes to keep a society that respects humanity. That is a far cry from what we have right now, or what we have ever had for most. Note that our system was always great for a few. It is great for a few still, even after the Depression of 2008, even after the Depression of 1929, the system was always continued to be good for a select few. It is the evolution to ensure that all have equal access to success that is the deep genesis of today's fight. It's cloaked in the isms. When we talk about racism, sexism, and these phobias, anti-immigrant, all these things, they are just the sideshow for real issues. Now, let's talk about closing hospitals. All over the South, that these areas that completely disregarded the Medicaid expansion to the Affordable Care Act, hospitals are closing down. We've even had a South Carolina mayor walk all the way to Washington to try to get his congresspersons to force their governor and otherwise to accept the Medicaid expansion to the Affordable Care Act so that their people could get hospital care. All right? Now, it is imperative that rural areas, Medicare for all is great for everybody, but especially for rural areas. Rural areas can't afford hospitals, right? They can't because they don't have the resources to support the entire infrastructure of a hospital, ambulances, expensive equipment, but those expensive equipments, etc., would do well there because people get into train wrecks, they hit the train, they run over a cliff, and flying them or getting them to a big city where there are ample resources is difficult. So therefore, they need support as well. So how do we do that? It's not profit-based that would allow that to happen. We in the cities must subsidize our brothers and sisters in rural areas so that we can have hospitals all over the darn place. And you know what? We talk about so we can subsidize our rural brothers and sisters, right? Let me tell you something that's interesting. I love every so often going out and camping out at, if you're a selfish person, just think about this. I like camping out in New Braunfels at a river, near San Marcos at the Guadalupe River here in Texas. It's a more rural type area. I like going out up into the West Texas and enjoy going on in the hill country where there's almost nothing out there. And if I were to fall off at the time that I was cycling down those hills, those mountains, if I'd gotten hurt, the amount of time it would have gotten me to a hospital would probably ensure my death. But if you're in a Medicare for all type system, you are no longer placing hospitals based on profit motives for in certain areas. I'm not saying eliminate private hospitals. I'm just saying where it makes no economic sense to have private hospitals, let's have a network that makes sure that we have hospitals in select areas so that we have some rule of thumb that protects the entire country. This is America. This is the United States of America. So therefore, there are certain hospitals that would have to be subsidized. Why? Because, maximal utilization of equipment is not the answer when you're talking about healthcare as a right, when you're talking about humanity, when you're talking about somebody's life. Now, Mike Cisak says, Egberto, you want to have very long lines and restrictions of healthcare services? No. If there in some areas in Canada, in some areas in Great Britain, there are long lines. But you know what else? We've spent twice as much as they do, so our lines can be non-existent because of the amount of money we already spend. So we get the insurance companies out. We get back our investment in the drugs that we give away to the pharmaceutical. Get back our investment. That was investment that the taxpayer paid that we have allowed corporate socialism to take away. Come on, Mike Cisak. It's math. The answers are there. We have allowed the corporatocracy to pilfer us. And what I have to have my rural brothers and sisters understand is stop fighting for an ideology that doesn't save you. Stop fighting for an ideology that kills you. Stop fighting for these false statements by your politicians that have made an art out of lying to you. Your small 10,000 place community cannot solely create or sustain a good hospital. But you know what can? The United States government can. And you know what? It will cost more for that hospital than it will take in no matter what. But guess what? We here in the cities should be willing to subsidize to ensure that the entire country is covered. And what it also means, it means also that we as private citizens, no matter where we are, can feel perfectly free to travel the country, knowing that we will never, ever be too far away from good health care. I mean, the things that our plutocracy has done to corrupt the mind, to confuse the minds of so many, is evil. I am sorry. When the answers are so clear and the reasons we have to fight so hard to get it through to the average American citizen makes those who promote the fallacies evil. Whether you're Democrat, whether you're Republican, if you are pushing those Republican talking points about health care and what it means to have Medicare for all, I will look you, if you were to come to my town and I come to a conference and I shake your hands, if you have used those talking points, I, Egberto Willis, will look you straight in the eye with utmost civility and tell you, you are evil. You are evil to place your donations. You are evil to place the monies of the corporate drug dealers. You're evil to use the money of the corporate whatever against your own people. You are evil. It is time for us to start calling out politicians for the evil that they do and not attempt to sugarcoat it. Again, you can be very civil. I can say, Michael Bennet, Senator Michael Bennet of Colorado, welcome to Houston. I hate to tell you, you know better. And because I am absolutely sure you know better because you know math, you also know and have access to the information from Canada. You have access to the information from Australia. You have access to the information from Taiwan. You have access to the information from Great Britain, from the United Kingdom. For you to use those talking points in America then, and for a particular cause that actually harms and kills some of your fellow persons, you are evil. Mark my words, sir. You are evil. I will look at my Republican listeners, my conservative listeners, my moderate Democratic listeners, and tell you the same. I want all that is good for you. All of us in the independent media, what we are trying to do is promote truth as it really is, not cloaked by anything other than the truth that it is. And it is upon us to find a way to get to all of you. We don't have a stake in the game. Nobody's paying us to push some crazy fringe. The people on the fringe are the people that would have policies that causes your death. That's the fringe. When we talk about the Green New Deal and how do we pay for it? How do we not pay for it? And first of all, it will generate so much employment. It'll clean so much up. I don't even know how much it would cost because of the economic activity that would bring, unlike tax cuts. Tax cuts don't implicitly bring economic activity. Tax cuts only bring economic activity if that tax cut immediately gets thrown into the economy. But as I showed you with the Trump tax cut, that is not what occurred. They pilfered you. I think I showed that, right? That the tax cut didn't go to anybody but the rich. And the small amount that went to the average American citizen was just taken back. How was it taken back? Higher healthcare cost, higher everything else that didn't move with inflation. Remember, healthcare went up at a higher clip than insurance, rather than inflation. Hospital bills went up at a higher clip than inflation. You don't see a whole lot of that on TV. And the reason why you don't see a whole lot of that on TV is because when you start hearing these things day after day, Lee Grant and Mike Cisak are going to say, oh my God, we are in fact getting ripped off. The system is ripping us off. The system is ripping us off. So please, folks, please let's open our eyes. Please open our eyes. There are certain things that the government does much better than the private sector can. There's absolutely no doubt about it. I want the private sector to be relegated to just what the private sector does. In other words, if I want to form a software company like I did, I form one, get it working. If I decide I want to quit that and do what I'm doing now, which is to be a truth teller, not only a truth teller, but somebody who's attempting for us to make change, the necessary change so that Mike Cesek, that former Mike Cesek, and I'm using Mike Cesek because Mike Cesek is a regular on the show. He's a farmer. He's a good guy. Mike, where are you from? I forgot what state you're from. Put it in the chat for me. I forgot what state you're from. But I want everybody. I want everybody supported. I wish ill on absolutely nobody. So, folks, please, if you want to get a quick call in, that number would be 646-716-5812. Again, that is 646-716-5812. We have 3 new T-shirts, my friend. The first one, kind of a joke on our good old president, Donald Trump. It says, Nancy Pelosi, please don't impeach me. You can get that at store.politicsdoneright.com, and that the link is inside of the chat. You can see that. All the links to support us are inside of the chat. The other T-shirt that we have is I support independent media. I support independent media. If we really want to be informed, if we really want to find out what's going on, if we really want information not cloaked by the plutocracy, we want independent media. We want independent media, and that's a nice T-shirt. And the last T-shirt is to the Yang Gang. You know, I was so impressed with Yang that I added Yang as my third candidate. I have Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, and now Andrew Yang. And why do I have Andrew Yang as now one of my preferred candidates? Because those are the 3 candidates that I think offer the most transformational change that this society needs. They're not all equal. They don't have all the same policies. But guess what? Guess what? All of them have a pathway to make your life better, to make sure that they don't have a corporate state that continues to pilfer you. So, Andrew Yang, you know what he said? America, I know what you're thinking. What am I still doing up here? Remember when he said that? This is sort of a play on that. I actually designed this one and got one of my illustrators to put it together. And I kind of love that one. So please go ahead to store.politicsdoneright.com, store.politicsdoneright.com, and give us some support. Let's make sure that we are well supported. And if you want to become a member, you want to become a subscriber, please go to either Patreon, patreon.com/politicsdoneright, or just go to politicsdoneright.com and choose one of the options to become subscribers. We do really need your support to continue this project. This is a very expensive project, but we do it on pennies on the dollars. In this case, right now, it's yours truly until I reach 1,000 subscribers where I can get me then a part-time producer. But right now, I write, I produce, I travel to the different cities, I go to the different things all by my lonesome. Every now and then I'll get a little bit of help from somebody on the outside, but this is necessary work, my friends, and anyone as well. We need a lot of folks doing exactly this. If you have interest in also becoming or doing this type of journalism, and you have the time, the effort, and the draw or the oomph to go ahead and do the research to make sure that we're telling people just fact-based information, you know, we can talk about being a part of this network as well. Again, politicsdoneright.com, politicsdoneright.com. Thank you so kindly for being here with me. Thank you so kindly for your support. Please consider supporting today before the end of the year. Let us get my count back up to at least 100 at Patreon. That is patreon.com/politicsdoneright. Politics Done Right. I love you all. Thank you so kindly for spending this time with me. And my name is Egberto Willis. This is Politics Done Right. And you know how I end this, baby? I am what? Out!